This week, I'm driving the all-new 2026 Subaru Trailseeker. Since it just came out recently, I didn't want to break in a brand new vehicle for testing, but we can have a dedicated test drive vehicle. I thought that it'd be a good idea to review probably one of the most anticipated electric Subarus that just came out in the market this year. The interest for the car has been extremely high. We've had the Subaru Solterra for a couple years now, and the Subaru Uncharted also for a few months. The Subaru Trailseeker is a dual motor, all-wheel drive, full EV that was developed side by side with the Toyota BZ Woodland. It shares a lot of things with the BZ Woodland, similar to how the Solterra and the Toyota BZ, as well as the Uncharted and the Toyota CHR, share a lot of its components. The Subaru Trailseeker is the largest of the available Subaru EVs right now. It's pretty much the same size as the brand new 2026 Subaru Outback. It's a proper mid-sized SUV. Although if you compare it to some mid-sized SUVs, it doesn't have quite as high of a ride height. The Trailseeker isn't a gigantic SUV, offers pretty generous space inside the cabin, especially for its footprint. But because EV powertrains take up so much less room, you actually get more bang for your buck when it comes to interior space versus its overall footprint. Specs-wise, the Subaru Trailseeker uses the same 74 kilowatt-hour battery that the Subaru Solterra, as well as the Subaru Uncharted long range uses. It puts out 385 horsepower, which is pretty generous, but the powertrain is capable of giving the Trailseeker a 0 to 100 kilometer an hour time of 4.4 seconds, which is mind-blowing for an SUV, and it's one of the fastest accelerating Subarus in production. Very important specification of the Trailseeker is that it can tow up to 1,500 kilograms or about 3,500 pounds. This powertrain can also give the Trailseeker an estimated range of 440 kilometers, which is more than enough for most people. It's definitely enough for you to take a road trip. Just like all the other new Subaru EVs, it uses the NACS charging plug. It doesn't have the fastest charging speed on paper, only at 150 kilowatts of peak charging speed. However, it is enough to give you 10 to 80% in about half an hour. If you are taking that road trip, if we stop for a washroom break, if we stop for a snack, it can charge the car faster than you would take that break. Very rarely, especially when I'm taking a road trip, am I waiting until the battery gets to 10% before I find a charging station? Most of the time, I'm already looking for a charging station at like 30% or so. For most Trailseeker buyers, you're definitely not looking for the most competitive in terms of specification. I think that most of our buyers are just looking for a regular car that just so happens to be an EV where they can get amazing performance, they can get amazing economy, and save a ton of money when it comes to filling up the vehicle, when it comes to charging the car. So being a Subaru, it does use Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive system, which gives it amazing capabilities. Just like all the other all-wheel drive Subarus out there, we also have X mode. Essentially use it like a cruise control system for off-roading. One thing that I did really like about the Subaru Trailseeker that I didn't see in the Uncharted that I test drove a couple weeks ago is that there is a drive mode selector for the Trailseeker. So aside from just your standard drive mode, you also have eco mode as well as a power mode. That gives the Trailseeker a very adaptable personality depending on how you're going to be driving it, depending on what sort of surfaces you're going to be driving it. So with power mode, it gives you a little bit better acceleration, throttle is a little bit more sensitive, and then with eco mode, on the flip side, it eases in that power so then you're not using as much electricity. You can conserve the battery a little bit more. But overall, I think that the benefits of the car, aside from its all-wheel drive system, aside from great acceleration and storage space and everything like that, is the overall design of the vehicle. I mentioned it a couple times when I was test driving the Uncharted, is that Subaru really targeted new EV owners and owners that just kind of wanted an EV that felt like their internal combustion engine car. Just like the Uncharted, just like the Solterra, I think that Subaru hit the nail on the head there. So one small thing, I do want to compare the Subaru Trailseeker to the BZ Woodland. there are a couple things that are different about the car other than its design. Most people say that the Trailseeker is just a rebadged Toyota, and I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing. I think that because we have a partnership with Toyota, the Subaru Trailseeker does get a lot of the reliability, a lot of the sensibility in design, in production that Toyota is really known for. That means that the Subaru Trailseeker is a great everyday car, and it's a great option for anyone who wants a reliable car, capable car, while still getting all of the benefits of owning an EV. Compared to the Toyota BZ Woodland, I think one of the biggest things that customers have mentioned that they prefer on the Trailseeker over the BZ Woodland is that same hexagon steering wheel that I mentioned I really like on the Subaru Uncharted. Across the Subaru EV lineup, all three of the vehicles have this square hexagon shaped steering wheel, which gives you a lot better visibility when you're in the driver's seat, especially so that you can fully see the instrument panel in front of the driver. You can fully see the road without any obstruction. Aside from that, it does give you a lot more knee room. For me, I'm not a super tall guy, but I find myself hitting my knee on the steering column or the steering wheel on a lot of vehicles unless I really move that steering wheel up or I lower my seat all the way down. But on the Subaru Trailseeker, because it does have the flat top and the flat bottom, it gives me a lot more leg room, even if I don't adjust the seat all the way down. Compared to the BZ Woodland, the Subaru Trailseeker also has a slightly tighter turning radius. Now, I haven't personally tested the BZ Woodland, so I can't really speak from experience. But from what I've seen online, the Subaru has about a 10% tighter turning radius compared to the BZ Woodland. And that all comes down to not only the all-wheel drive system, but also a little bit of the steering and suspension tuning that is unique on each of the vehicles. So being a Subaru, we definitely do prioritize that capability. We definitely do prioritize that driving experience. So when we compare it to the Toyota, which might be a little bit more on the comfort side, I think that you definitely do get a lot more capability when it comes to the Subaru Trailseeker. On top of that, the Trailseeker does also have about 2.5 centimeters of extra ride height compared to the BZ Woodland, which maybe isn't going to make a night and day difference in daily driving and day-to-day ownership. Perhaps for getting on and off the vehicle, it might make a small difference. Potentially, if you are taking the car on rougher surfaces, maybe off-roading here and there, you're going to have just that little bit of extra ground clearance. Combined with Subaru's symmetrical all-wheel drive, you definitely have a very off-road capable EV. So I know that it is a very similar design to the Subaru Uncharted that I test drove a little while ago. There are a lot of the same things that I really like about the Trailseeker that are exactly the same as on the Uncharted. I talked about the paddle shifters on the steering wheel, and it has the same paddle shifter, same very tactile feel to it. There are a couple unique things to the Trailseeker that I quite like. So this particular trim level that I'm driving is the top model. It's the Premier. On the Premier exclusively, you do get ventilated seats. I have a sweaty back. I'm a little bit on the warm side. Having the ventilated seats definitely help. It feels amazing, cools me down. You don't have to rely as much on the air conditioner, which uses a lot of electricity, and you can still stay cool on a hot summer day like today. Aside from the ventilated seats, another feature that I've always really liked is the digital rear view mirror. Not everyone is a fan of the digital rear view mirror, and I'll admit that it definitely takes a little bit of getting used to. But with a car that has as much cargo space, as much passenger space as the Trailseeker, you might get that taller passenger. You might put a lot of boxes and stuff into your cargo space, and it's going to obstruct that rear view mirror. And that's the perfect time to flip the switch on the rear view mirror and turn on the digital mirror so that you can still see out the back. Yes, it does take a little bit of getting used to. As with anything, you know, we're very adaptable. And once you get used to it, it's a great addition. It's a great feature to have. On the Trailseeker Premium, you do also have a amazing sound system. It's the Harman Kardon 11 speaker sound system. Especially after doing a little bit of EQ tuning, I quite like my bass. After I adjust that a little bit, it sounds great. It sounds comparable, again, to cars that are much more expensive than the Trail. For daily driving, a couple of very useful things I found on the Trailseeker compared to some other EVs out there is the actual controls on the vehicle. I always talk about the HVAC system, being able to use physical dials to adjust the temperature, volume. Those are the two things that drivers use the most while they're driving. And I really appreciate that Subaru went with physical controls so that you can just kind of reach your hand over and adjust the temperature, adjust the volume. I always said that the Subaru EVs are, again, for people who aren't just looking for the specs, they're just looking for an easy to get used to EV that drives no different than the regular Subarus. A couple other things about the Subaru Trailseeker that I quite like. Overall styling on the outside and the inside is very nice, very similar to the other Subarus out there. When you look at the side of the car, it almost looks the same as a Outback, which I don't think is a bad thing. I think it looks pretty good. On the inside, we have the same very standard shift knob. We have a lot of interior cabin space, super comfortable seats. Of course, on the Premier, you get the real leather on the seats. Adds a little bit of that pizzazz to it. I really like the blue interior on the Subaru Uncharted. This particular one that I'm driving that's available at Go Richmond Subaru is white on the outside. And I always think when you have neutral colors on the outside, having a little bit of pop of color on the inside, like on this one with the blue leather, does look really nice. And with the Trailseeker, aside from all these bells and whistles, you get all the standard things that most people want in their car. 2 wireless chargers on the inside. Got Apple CarPlay, which I've been using. Android Auto for my Android customers. Just like on the Subaru Uncharted, it does have regenerative braking. I guess that would be one of the things that I wasn't a huge fan of on the Trailseeker, which is exactly the same as on the Uncharted. The regenerative braking isn't that strong. You still do need to step on the brake to fully engage that regenerative braking. It is easier for new EV owners to get used to, but it doesn't have the same level of stopping power compared to some of the traditional EVs out there. On the Trailseeker Premier, another exclusive feature is the panoramic sunroof. And I do appreciate for baldies like myself that the Subaru Trailseeker panoramic sunroof comes with an electric shade. Not only can you enjoy the beautiful sky while driving on a nice day, but you can close it if the sun's getting a little bit too intense for the top of your head, or if you just want to maintain a lower cabin temperature by blocking out the sun. So all in all, I think that the Trailseeker is a pretty good package for a mid-size SUV EV. It's the perfect size when it comes to storage space, when it comes to cabin space, very comfortable suspension, even though it is a little bit more off-road optimized. Super smooth acceleration, steering feels good. There's really few complaints that I have about driving. Again, when it comes to the design of the powertrain and how the car feels as an EV, I think that a lot of considerations were made to ensure that new EV owners, Subaru owners coming from their current Subaru into the Trailseeker are able to adapt very easily. I think that Subaru made sure that all the features that owners want in their car are available on the Subaru Trailseeker, especially at the top of the line here. I think that basically everything that you're looking for, all the bells and whistles, 360 camera, all those types of things are included. Subaru owners that want to spend a little bit more money, want a little bit of a bigger car, they're not missing out on anything on the Trailseeker. This particular one is priced at about $65,000 plus taxes. Depending on what sort of kit you want on your Trailseeker, they do start in the high 50,000s. You still get the same powertrain. You still get a lot of great standard features. But if you do want some of the bells and whistles, you're probably going to want to look at the limited trim or the Premier trim that I'm driving over here. This particular one is available at Go Richmond Subaru, as are all the other trim levels. If you are interested in this car, stop by, talk to one of my amazing sales advisors. Again, my name is Daniel. I'm the EV sales manager at Go Richmond Subaru, and this is my manager demo.